Welcome to Street Scene Power Hour. You are here again with us, and we appreciate it. Appreciate all the support from the community. And again, I'm joined by host Larry Ward, host Rick Herrera, and I'm Greg Roden, and we are honored to have TJ Tennant as our guest. And Larry, please introduce what he does and take it away from here.
I'd like to welcome my friend TJ Tennant to Armstrong Street Scene Power Hour. TJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Larry. I appreciate you guys inviting me.
Man, I'll tell you, we are honored because it's tougher to get you than a $2 steak, man. I'll tell you that.
We're just a little bit busy.
You are. I'll tell you, let me give our listeners and our viewers a little background on TJ Tennant and how we met. Every year, I, Roy Dykeman, the whole cast of characters from the motorcycle show would trek down to vintage motorcycle days. And we would, of course, from time to time sit in on various seminars. You know, we always thought that we were smarter than the guys giving seminars, except when we came to this one seminar and it was about safety and tires and this and that. And we're like, oh, wow, man, listen to this guy. Let's see if we can throw him some curveballs. Well, I ended up giving him a damn T-shirt because he was so good at it. And he gave a great seminar that day. And I've been fortunate enough to have him on several times on the motorcycle show. TJ Tennant is a chief engineer retired for Bridgestone tires. And that, of course, is anything that's got a hoop, whether it's a wheelbarrow tire or a motorcycle tire, airplanes, but mostly automobile tires. So we're going to talk to TJ a little bit about his background. Tell us a little bit about what it is you did do, what it is you are currently doing. Then we'll get into some questions about, like I had asked years ago about tires, tire pressure, you know, what to do, what not to do, how to check things. So TJ, take it away.
Wow, I'm going to have to come up with the proper lie to address all that, Larry.
Lie away.
I was formerly one of the engineering managers at Bridgestone Firestone. I was a global motorcycle tire expert. I developed their first oval winning kart racing tire when I first came to the corporate office. I started during the Ford Firestone fiasco, and Bridgestone actually owns Firestone. And I kind of cut my teeth there on trying to determine why tires came out of service. And I handled motorcycle tires. I got promoted to the corporate office and handled motorcycle on-road and off-road racing back then, and also karting. And then I got promoted to open wheel racing. So I did a lot of stuff with the IRL, like the Indy 500 and stuff like that. And that was a lot of travel. I really enjoyed it. Met some great people, you know, just some really great people involved in open wheel racing. That got to be too much because my son got a little older and we started walking and talking. So I got out of that job and went back to being a engineering manager and handle our government stuff, including Department of Defense. Retired from Bridgestone about a little over 3 years ago and started Tennant & Associates. And Tennant & Associates and the Tyre Guy is actually two companies. The guys from Tennant & Associates actually are expert witnesses in courtrooms and stuff like that. They're kind of like the real life NCIS guys, including me. And then there's the Tyre Guy section. And those guys work with me to train law enforcement in tire forensics. We also train technical maintenance type guys who work on emergency vehicles and fire engines and stuff like that. So we're a small team, but we are really, 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 really busy. I've been traveling every week since March now. So I've got a couple days of downtime, including this one, fortunately, so I can kind of hang out with some people that I like for a change.
Well, that wouldn't be Rick. No, we leave him aside.
We kind of have a running joke on Facebook because every time I see TJ gone somewhere, then I'll immediately pop up with, well, then can I borrow the Ferrari Friday night?
You got a Ferrari.
With a lot of people, and it's kind of funny. But I have a couple quick questions we're going to open up with. First of all, you earlier before the show started, and again in your opening monologue, said something about out of service. That's a term that Joe Public never ever hears. Out of service. Now I think out of service. Okay, why don't you explain that term? And then I wanted to talk to you about how close the motorcycle industry, tire-wise, is becoming on road tires. So we'll open up with out of service.
Tires that are out of service, and that means exactly what it says. They're out of service, and they can become out of service due to aging, or they could become out of service due to a puncture or an improper repair. For whatever reason, that tire is no longer operable on a vehicle, we would consider that out of service. Now, that is a little bit different than a tire that, for instance, blows out. And that's an interesting word because the tire does literally blow out because it's higher air pressure on the inside of the tire than the regular atmospheric pressure. But a lot of people say, hey, the tire blew out. That is a general term, kind of an old term. And that's like the iPhone 1, and we're on the iPhone 10 now. So the term that I would really use if a tire becomes out of service would be tire disablement. And that is the standard term that's used in the tire industry, and one of the terms that we teach law enforcement when they're working an accident or something like that, to make sure that they don't come across as presenting themselves as a tire expert.
I agree with that. And, let's get into the tires just a little bit. On the sidewall, for the edification of our viewers and listeners, let's talk about the average numbers, because I look at them when I buy motorcycle tires now, since I don't have a friend working at Bridgestone anymore. When I actually buy those motorcycle tires, there are date codes on there, and you learn how to decipher them. But let's talk about the aspect ratio, the date codes. What are the normal things you're going to see on a car or a motorcycle tire that will help you determine if you still have good life left in those tires? Even though they're new, they could be 3 or 4 years of sitting, somewhere in a warehouse.
Let's talk first about the DOT date, which it's not a serial number. Some people mistakenly call that a serial number. It is not a unique identifier to that one single tire. It basically tells someone like me, the first two codes tell the plant that it's located. There's a book called Who Makes It Where that not only tells me what country, which is stamped on the sidewall, but it also tells me the city and state and sometimes the contact information, which I may need if I'm working an accident case or just doing some general research. But the thing that most of you laymen and civilians need to be cognizant of are the last 4 digits, and they're always numerical. There shouldn't be any alpha or anything like that on the last 4. We're going to talk about the difference between seeing 4 and seeing 3. But the last 4 digits, the first 2 numbers would be the week that tire's made. The last 2 numbers would be the year. So if it says 4621 as the last 4 numbers in that DOT, which is right there around the bead area, it'll start with the letters DOT and it'll be 11 to 13 digits, but the last 4 are important. So if it's got 4621, that was made in the 46th week of 2021. Now, let's talk about if it's only got 3 numbers at the end. I hope you never see those. If it's got 46.2, that was made in the 46th week of 2002. And that tire is really old. Now, there's no law in the US that says, hey, you have to pull a tire off and just get rid of it at a certain time. But there is a standard that's initiated, I think by NHTSA or something like that, the National Highway and Traffic Administration, Safety Administration. And what that says is that after 6 years from the DOT date, the manufacturing date, then that tire should be removed and inspected internally and externally each year after that 6th year up until 10 years. And then after 10 years, it should be highly recommended. And I must say highly recommended. It be removed from service. And that's the standard. And that DOT operates the same way on any street tire, whether it be motorcycle, passenger and light truck, commercial. If the tire's got a DOT on it, that's how it works. And that's what it means. Now, if you want to go to your local tire dealer and say, hey, I want to get a tire that's less than 2 years old, that can be difficult to do because the tires are manufactured and then they're in the manufacturer's warehouse and then they go to a distributor and then they go to a dealer and So typically you can get a tire, if they rotate their stock appropriately, between 18 months and 2 years old. Now, most of the tire manufacturers, if they have any tires at all in their warehouse that are 18 to 24 months old, they actually scrap those tires. You can't get them. They just totally destroy them. And so that way you are supposed to be able, if it's done right, get the newest tire or as close to its birth date as possible.
Now, the question on these tires, when they're sitting in a warehouse, I've heard different things like, especially on bicycle tires, like you want to keep them in a cooler climate away from the sunlight. Any thoughts on that on car? Well, not so much car, but maybe a motorcycle or a bicycle tire.
If you can keep them in the shade, that's a lot better. You don't want to store the motorcycle or the tires around any ozone emitting equipment. Ozone emitting equipment could be an air conditioning unit or something like that. If you can keep them out of direct sunlight, and I know people say, well, when I'm riding a motorcycle, I'm in direct sunlight. Yeah, you're right. But when the bike's not moving or not being operated, you want to try to keep it in the shade. You've probably seen some people, you pass by their house and they've got a RV in their house and they got covers on the tires. That's why they've got those covers on the tires, to prevent ozone. And what ozone does is cause cracking. Most people know it as dry rot on tires. And it creates that and makes it worse. And there's certain chemicals that they actually put in the tires to limit the amount of dry rot that you see on tires. And typically, there is no level of dry rot that I'm aware of that's ever caused a tire failure. It's usually cosmetic, meaning it's just visual. But if you do have a high level of ozone for the retail side, it's 1 through 3, with 3 being the worst. On the engineering side, it's 1 through 5, with 5 being the worst. Then most of the tire manufacturers, if you say something about it, you take it to your local authorized tire dealer, and they will prorate you into a new set of tires, usually with no question.
Let's talk about under and over inflation. They both have an effect on the tire that's negative. I've seen a lot of people, especially when you're traveling to Florida and the ambient temperatures might be 100 degrees and they got underinflated tires and they blow, or something like that. So talk about the importance of correct inflation and what happens if you under or over.
Okay, let's talk about correct inflation first. When you open your driver's side door, there's a little placard in that door sill that tells you a lot of information about your tires, your wheels. Sure. It tells you the size tire. It tells you the recommended air pressure. And that's important to try to follow that if you have the same size and category as what came as original equipment. Now, if you change tires, you got the same size, but it's a different construction. Say, for instance, if the tire that came on the vehicle was a P 235 75 16, and that's on a pickup truck, and you decide to go with an LT 235 75 16, that will, and I must say that will require a different air pressure than what's on the door placard. Doesn't matter if it's the same size, it's a different construction. So what you need to do then is contact your local tire dealer and tell them, hey, this is what the vehicle came with. They're going to need to know the front and rear gross vehicle weights. And that's what they're going to base the air pressure requirement for this new tire. Also, another thing, if you change away, even if you go from the same size, but from a P metric to an LT, they're going to have to reset your tire pressure monitoring system, because it's now going to require a different tire pressure rating on there that trips that delta or that gap in when that thing goes off. So let's talk a little bit now about overinflated or insufficient air pressure to carry the load and overinflation. One of the things that we found here recently, and I was shocked to find this out, is people who drive hybrids and electric vehicles, they actually overinflate their tires. And what I mean by that, they will put up to the maximum air pressure that's on the sidewall of the tire. And you shouldn't necessarily follow that. You need to follow what's on the door placard. And I asked why they were doing that. And they said, well, they want to get a little bit extra miles per gallon. Well, you only get maybe 0.5 more miles per gallon when you do that. But there's several drawbacks to overinflating the tire. And by the way, never, ever, ever, never go over the air pressure rating that's on the sidewall of the tire. Just don't ever do that. So when you overinflate the tire or put too much air pressure for the load that you're carrying, and I want us to think differently about air pressure in tires. It's the load that determines the air pressure that you're going to install in that tire. That's what's on the door placard. That's what that's based off of. You overinflate that tire, a couple of things are going to happen. You're going to raise the sidewalls up, and now you're going to be mostly on the center of the tread, so you got less tread on the ground. That's fine on a dry day, but on the day that it's wet, you're going to have some increased stopping distances because you've reduced the amount of rubber that's on the road. Also, one of the other things that you're going to have a drawback with is that tire is more susceptible to an impact brake. And what I mean by an impact brake is if you're driving a vehicle, it's got way too much air pressure for the load that's on the tire. If you hit a pothole or a stick or a 2x4 in the road, there's a high probability that you're going to suffer a tire failure or a tire disablement. Either one just as bad. Now, let's go to the other side, the yang to that yin, which is underinflation or insufficient air pressure to carry the load. When you have insufficient air pressure to carry the load, a few things happen there too. What happens is you start developing a cumulative damage to that tire as it's being operated with insufficient air pressure to carry that load. And you're adding a lot more heat to that tire. It doesn't matter what part of the country you're in, as that tire deflects, as it rolls around, it deflects, and then it deflects again. With each revolution, that tire develops heat because you got friction between the tire and the road, the internal components of the tire and the wheel, which it should do because it's part of the suspension system. But if you develop too much heat inside of that tire for passenger and most light truck that's fibers like polyester, you can start weakening those fibers and damaging the inner liner of that tire. Now, one of the other things that you can also do with that is you limit the life of the tire. You can cut as much as 40% of the tire life out of that tire by running it with basically running it with the TPMS light on. Once that comes on, you need to install some air in there. It's really, really important. Also, if you have insufficient air pressure to carry the load or low air pressure on your hybrid vehicle, now you've undone all the engineering that was put into that hybrid vehicle to give you those really good fuel economy mileages and things like that. And speaking of hybrid and electric vehicles, one of the other things that you have to understand as well is that when you're ready to purchase another set of tires, you need to purchase a green tire. That doesn't mean the tire's green. It means it's fuel efficient. If you replace that fuel efficient tire that came on that vehicle with a conventional tire of the same size, you're going to have a higher level of rolling resistance, and that's also going to limit your fuel economy. So it's really important to go back with a fuel efficient tire on a hybrid vehicle or an electric vehicle.
When do you check your tire pressure?
You should check
it cold or hot?
You should check it always cold.
Always
if you're
cold,
out there on the road, you need to park it for at least an hour and then check it, and then apply the amount of air pressure that's needed according to the door placard if you've got the same type tire as what came on there. One of the things that I recommend, and this used to happen in my home state of Louisiana, guys would put big flotation tires and things like that on their vehicles, and they'd call and say, "Hey, TJ, how much air pressure do I need to put in here?" I recommended they get one of those little stencil thing and put a label over the door placard. So even if they took it to a third party to have that tire worked on, you could tell them, "Hey, the door placard's wrong because this is a different tire, but I've got some little labels in there of what the front and rear air pressure should be." But all tires, passenger, light truck, motorcycle, actually all tires lose pressure every month. And if you looked at a tire under a microscope, it is porous. It looks like a sponge. You get a lot of air leakage through where the tire seals on the B, the valve and things like that. But for passenger, light truck, and motorcycle, you're going to lose about 1 PSI per month. For commercial truck tires, you're going to lose anywhere from 1.5, probably 2 PSI per month. Now, this time of the year, there's something else you need to think about because it may be really cold at night and you get up in the morning and your TPS lights on. You're like, "What the crap, man?" What happens is for every 10 PSI up or down, you will lose or gain 1 PSI of air pressure. So if it's hotter by 10 degrees, you're going to gain 1 PSI. If it's colder for every 10 degrees colder, you're going to lose 1 psi. And that's why sometimes you can get up in the morning, your TPMS lights on. By the time you get to work, the light's off, and you're like, what's that about? Well, the tire actually heated up, and the air pressure increased due to the friction of the tire and internal components.
Should you do anything about it? Like when tire pressure goes up or what?
Anytime your TPMS lights on, you need to make an adjustment to your tire pressure. You may not be able to make it that morning because you're late for work or something like that, like my wife always is. But anyway,
we'll send her a copy of this show, Greg.
No, I ban her from watching any series that I'm on. But as soon as you get an opportunity, you need to adjust the air pressure. And one question I get about that: what if it's 70 degrees in my garage and 30 degrees outside? It doesn't matter. Adjust your air pressure accordingly so that TPMS lights on. Also, you never want to wait to put air in your tire till your TPMS light comes on, because anytime a tire gets 20% or lower with insufficient air pressure to carry the load, you're doing a cumulative damage, and the tires don't repair themselves. So over time, you could develop a tire failure, and someone like me could come out and look at that tire if you're getting sued or you're suing somebody, and actually tell that you ran the tire for a sufficient amount of time to do enough damage to make that tire become disabled or failed. So every month you want to check that air pressure to make sure that you've got the right air pressure in that vehicle. If you can, never, ever, never wait until that TPMS light comes on.
How about when we get to like classic cars and we set them all winter, and then all of a sudden they're flat spotted? Wait, is that the tires shot or what? Usually we run them. Okay.
That's a great question. What you can do is you can put the vehicle up on blocks, or go ahead and if you're not going to be operating the vehicle for any time, put maximum air pressure in it, whatever on the sidewall of the tire, and then move it every few months or so it's not sitting on that spot, because you can actually develop a permanent flat spot in that tire.
Like the old bias ply tires, right?
Like the old bias ply. And sometimes if you've got one of the modern tires and you've got a vehicle that sets in the winter, up north, they usually have a winter vehicle and a summer vehicle, or regular temperature vehicle. If it's a high performance vehicle, if it's got a V-rated or H-rated or higher speed rating on there, you will have rayon body plies in there, and it will develop a flat spot. You see that a lot in police pursuit vehicles, where when it's cold, they get a thump until the tire warms up, and then that goes away. That's because of that rayon cap ply that's on there. And what that does is hold the vehicle. It doesn't let centrifugal force allow that tire to grow in the center at higher speeds. It keeps it where the contact patch of the tread on the ground remains the same, whether you're going, or similar, whether you're going 30 miles an hour or 130 miles an hour.
I have to jump in here real quick. There's obviously so much forensics to tires. I mean, you didn't realize we were the ones that go to the shop, say, I need a set of tires, put them on, pay the money, and we're done. TJ here is the one checking those tires when something happens. And, there's a lot of stuff that does happen to these tires. I just had, I'm sorry to jump in here real quick, but, I've got like these many questions. And I had to get one in at least, because I think Larry and Rick are going to take up the rest of the time.
He's really, TJ, you're really interesting. I've never
that's
known
unbelievable.
All this stuff.
I remember when I was younger that, when you're younger, couldn't afford tires, retreads. Your thoughts on retreaded tires, because I've had my experiences with them, and if you go down a road and you see a truck that's the tires peeled off, how about that? Are they safer now than they used to be? Are they better technology, or is it a no-go completely?
God, yes, they're much, much safer. As a matter of fact, they're almost, I would venture to say they're as good. They're about as literally 99% as good as a virgin tire. Still, no one puts retreaded tires on the steer of a commercial truck, which is where most retreads are now in the United States. In Canada and South America, that's a little different. But when you see those pieces of tread on the side of the road, the majority of those pieces are from virgin tires, not retreads. And you can tell the difference Yes, the way that you can tell the difference is that if the steel is still attached, usually on the edges, on each edge of that piece, you can see the steel pieces there, then that's a virgin tire. If it's just rubber and there's no steel belts attached to it, it is a retread. You will find that very rarely will you ever see just a retread tread that's on the side of the road. And that's because most people still have those misnomers thinking if I got retreads, I really got to check them because these suckers will blow out or something.
Yeah.
But when they have a new virgin tire, they tend to not pay as much attention to maintenance on that tire. And sometimes that's what happens. The tire blows out. Or what I found a lot in the commercial truck tire market, because those tires are slightly different because you have a steer and then you have drive and then you have trailer tires. They put a steer tire on and it may be the same brand, same name, same size, but where you run into issues in the commercial market is that it's a different load rating. So they may save $50 to $100 instead of putting an L, which is the maximum load carrying capacity in a particular size. They put a J on there. They think it's not that big a deal and I saved $150. But the possibility of that tire being overloaded is very high. And we found through our series in courts and lawsuits and things like that on the commercial market, most of the time when they steer tires blown out with a commercial truck tire, that's what we found in our lawsuits that we've handled for attorneys, that they put the wrong load range on there and that tire wasn't able to handle the load. And that's pretty much cut and dried. And part of the problem is doing some of that research with commercial truck tires, going not necessarily to the tire stores, but to the fleet service areas, they don't realize that they see these 3 or 4, as much as 5 different load ranges for the same size, make, and model tire. They really don't take that very seriously, and it can result often in the death of the truck driver, or most of the time it's the steer tire on the driver's side that's going to pull him into oncoming traffic on the other side. And maybe that driver doesn't become deceased, but the person that they run into does. And one of the things that we're able to do now, and we actually teach law enforcement this, is how to tell why the tire failed when the vehicle is totally burned up. And with a commercial truck tire, that's actually easier than it sounds because all the body plies are made of steel. And the word blowout is a very unique word because if it blows out and we look at that, what's left, usually just the steel body plies, it looks like a bowl of spaghetti. We know it's blown out. Now, if we go over there and the tire's burned up and everything's very neat and it looks like Clark Gable's hair back in the 1950s, where they combed and have the things in there and it looks really neat. If it looks like that, then that tire did not have a blowout. And that's a simple technique that you can use, and also something that the jury, if it goes to court, can easily understand.
Wow. Amazing.
If I could, real quick, I've got 2 questions and one will lead into the other. And I'll turn it over to Rick and Greg. The 2 questions I have is, let's talk about tread depth and how air pressure and ambient temperature and the distance you drive affects that. And then we'll slide right into tread wear, which was important to me when I ran autocross.
Okay, usually with an original equipment tire on passenger and light truck, they come with a slightly lower tread depth. So say, for instance, you have tire X and it comes on your Toyota Camry, that original equipment tire will come with less tread depth, usually about 10-30 seconds. Then you see the tire with the same name and everything in the store. It's got the road, it's got all the bells and whistles, and it's got 11 or 12, 30 seconds. Well, why is that true? And it's even got a mileage warranty. Well, one of the things that for original equipment tires is very rarely do you get a mileage warranty on an original equipment tire. So you may have a Toyota Camry or a Honda or whatever, Nissan, and the original equipment tire got 20,000 miles. And you're like, what the freaking crap? So you call, Toyota or Nissan or whoever, you say, look, this tire got 20,000 miles. That is not acceptable. What they're going to say is, well, that tire was made by Bridgestone. You need to call them, or Michelin or Goodyear, whoever. Then you call the tire manufacturer. What they don't tell you when you purchase that brand new vehicle is that the specifications on that tire, and they'll usually have 2 or more vendors that furnish tires, are set not by the tire manufacturer, but by the automobile manufacturer. And when they set those specifications, the amount of mileage is not part of that equation, or very rarely so. They'll say, well, I want rolling resistance, I want oversteer braking, wet traction, that kind of thing. Uniformity, which is the tire's round, it's not vibrating. Very rarely are they interested in mileage. So mileage falls by the wayside. But when you go back to buy new tires, you see a tire with the same name, same everything, but now it's got you say, this tire's got a 60,000 mile warranty. I know it does because I bought them. And they'll tell you, no, it's not an original equipment tire. So the specifications on the replacement tire, even if it has the same name, same size, same everything, are set by the tire manufacturer. And that's when they give you the 60,000 or 40,000 mile warranty. And that's one of the things they don't really tell consumers about when you buy a brand new car. So if you have a mileage shortfall, and not checking the air pressure seriously exacerbates that mileage shortfall. I mean, right. There was a manufacturer, that the company that I worked for had original equipment tires. And because of the suspension system, the way that it was set up, it would toe in to make the vehicle. It was a sedan, but a sports sedan. It handled really, really, really well. I mean, it was a joy to drive. But if you put a bag of golf clubs in the trunk, you were lucky to get 10,000 miles out of those original.
Oh, well, just perfectly balanced. You know?
So
don't haul anybody in your car.
No,
put anybody in the back seat.
Don't even put a child in the baby seat.
Don't put any bodies in the trunk.
So we had to work with them to try to get their customers into another set of tires that were not original equipment tires. Now, there are manufacturers like Porsche and Mercedes and who else? BMW. They have their own, and even Chevrolet. If you look at the side of the tire of a Chevrolet tire, original equipment tire, or GM tire, or GM product, it'll have TPC. That is their identification code that says this tire is designed specifically for this make, model, and trim. And then Porsche has an N code, N01, N02, whatever. And then, of course, Mercedes has MOE, Mercedes original equipment, BMW. Can't remember what their spec is, but some of them specialize in their own specification. So that can run a little bit differently, but you really have to try to educate yourself as much as possible, which is really, really a great reason to watch the Street Scene Power Hour, because you guys have got some great experts on this show.
Yes, we do. Today's a good one, I'll tell you.
And they can help you. They can help everyone that listens to this show understand more about what's going on with the products, because tires are not cheap, and I don't get discounts anymore. So I definitely, and one thing I want to tell everyone before we get off the air, I need everyone that's within earshot of this show to check the air pressure in their daggum temporary spare.
Oh, something you forget. And something I've forgotten when I've gotten a flat, and you're out in the middle of nowhere and you pull the spare out and it's flat. And it's like, how stupid am I for not checking that while I change the oil or something?
Uh-huh.
Nobody checks their temporary spare, and then you have a flat and you put a flat tire on to replace the flat tire that's taken off.
Like, which rim do I want to tear up the worst? My nice aluminum rims or my donut spare wheel, because both tires are flat.
On the tread depth, TJ, how much tread depth, I used to remember what it was. A 1/16 of an inch would wear off every 1,000 miles, something like that. Can you share with that, and then go to the Treadwear, that number and what that means?
It depends. Treadwear, the amount of miles per 30 is what you're referring to. A lot of the commercial guys use that calculation to determine how much mileage they're getting per 30. And that's important if you drive a commercial vehicle, because a lot of times people mistakenly look at, well, this tire's got, in a commercial application, it's got 18 30. This one's got 12. I'm going to buy the one with 18. Well, the one with 18 may only get 5,000 miles per 30, but with the one with 12 may get 16,000 miles per 30. So you could actually lose money by buying the tire with the deeper tread depth. Also, a lot of people don't understand when their tires are worn out. You've got a Treadwear bar in between the grooves on every tire that's got a DOT code on it.
Right.
And with passenger and light truck, that bar is at 2 30. Now, one of the things I want you to understand is that when you've got a tire, if it doesn't wear evenly, say you've got 3 grooves in that tire, and you check each groove, and this one's got 6 30-seconds, this one's got 4, and this one's got 2, that tire's then worn out. So it goes by the fastest wearing groove on that tire. And if you got one of those grooves that's at 2 30-second, it is done. No más trabajo, listo for that product. It's done. So even if you got 6 30-seconds on one side, when one side gets to 2, it's over. Kiss the baby, tell everybody you're closing shop. You get a new tire on it.
And wouldn't that tell you, am I right with this too? Normally, if you've got uneven wear like that, you've either got suspension problems or your car's way out of alignment and cupping and all that stuff on the tire.
Yeah, and when you look at your tires, that's a good thing to do too, is visually. I say you use all 5 senses to tell what's wrong with a tire. You can hear air seeping with sound. You got to look at it. You got to touch it to see what type of wear, whether it's getting feather edge wear. You can even smell a tire. I've had people who said, hey, a tire was bad, but they had the tire laying in antifreeze or some type of petroleum product.
Like food. You smell it, you touch it.
You can even taste them. Every tire tastes like chicken.
Rock said, "Can you smell what I'm cooking?" Hey, TJ, the other thing that goes hand in hand with tread wear or tread depth is a little thing on the sidewall of the tire that's called Treadwear. And when I used to autocross, if I could get like below 300 but still stay DOT, like a Toyo 880 is a good low tread wear. It'll be a lot softer, but it'll wear a lot quicker. Talk about that.
That's called a UTQG code. And on the treadwear portion, if the way that they measure that is each tire company is different. And I don't like the way that they measure it at all. And then let me explain why. Because the tire company will have a baseline tire that they're going to test all the tires in that sports or high performance category against. And if your tire wears half as much or twice as fast as the baseline tire, then yours, say if the baseline tire's got a 400 treadwear code on it, and your tire wears twice as fast, it's going to have a 200 for treadwear. So you're right. The lower it is, the closer it is to 200, the higher the performance of that tire is going to be, but the less treadwear you're going to get out of it.
Exactly.
Now, if it's approaching 400, that means it's probably going to be more a touring type aspect tire.
A rock.
And it's going to get equal to or better than the treadwear rating on the baseline or the test tire. The problem that I have with that is everybody does not use the same baseline tire to test. So you can take 2 tires, but one from one manufacturer, one from the other, both of them ultra high performance, and both of them say 200, and they may not mean anything even close to the 200 marking, because one used one tire to test as a baseline and one company used the other, and they don't say what tire they used. And so that's why I don't really like that. And that was the US government getting involved and trying to make it easier for consumers to understand treadwear on tires, and they just totally jacked that up. I'm just going to say
that's not easier.
Yeah, it's not easier. So one of the places I go is, and I'm not trying to advertise for them, I'm just going to say there's a website that I can go to, and it's the largest online tire retailer, and they do a really good job of comparing tires from different companies and different categories. They just do a great job. As a matter of fact, they're so good, most of the technical service or the customer service people from all the tire companies use their website. They don't even use their own.
We can probably take a guess what it is without saying it. So,
Yeah.
We won't say that, but we know kind of what it is.
Modern motorcycle tires, this is my last question, and because I want to make sure the guys get enough time, but modern motorcycle tires, as we start coming forward in the evolution of them, going from a single compound to now 2 and 3 CT compounds, where hard in the center and progressively softer on the inside. Well, what's your thought on that versus just buying a tire that has the tread wear that you want?
You know, it's really important. Motorcycling is really, really important to get the right tire for the motorcycle that you're riding.
Right.
So whether I'm on my Ducati or on my BMW touring bike or even like the GS series or something like that, it's important to get the right tire for that motorcycle. Now, let's talk about what you were talking about, 2CT, and that means the number of compounds that the tire is made of. And so
Right.
you can have a more, and I don't want to say harder, because with the technology today, you can't really tell by sticking your thumbnail in and saying, oh, that tire's soft, it's probably sticky.
Okay.
It doesn't work that way anymore. So you've got a very aggressive friction resistant compound in the center, which most motorcyclists, especially on touring bikes, ride more time upright than they do leaned over. So that gives you the mileage that you want. And then you may have a separate compound at the intermediately across the tread from the center to the shoulder that gives you a little bit more aggressive, a stickier compound for kind of going into curves. And then if you really want to almost drag a knee on a big touring bike or even a sport bike, it gives you a very aggressive compound that wears very quickly. Now, one of the things I want to talk about, if you have a dual compound tire, is if you don't maintain the right pressure, especially on a big touring bike, man.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
things are 800, 850 pounds. I weigh 270 pounds. You got all that on there. If you don't maintain that air pressure, when you roll over that really aggressive compound, sometimes later on in the life of the tire, you can look at it and there's some step down from one compound to the other. And that was caused by lack of maintenance. Basically, that person did not maintain proper air pressure. And that's what caused that intermediate or even that further more aggressive compound on the side to wear faster. Now, let's talk about high performance motorcycles like my Ducati. Sometimes the way the industry went, they went from single compound, then they started going to dual and triple compound. Now they appear to be swinging back for high performance bikes back to single compound, because most of those guys spend their time, at least I used to, on the side of that tire, not as much upright. So it didn't do you any good to put a more frictionless compound in the center, because you want as much traction as you can for when you're on the throttle or on the brakes, especially on that front tire and things like that on that. And you're spending a lot of time going left and right and leaning and getting thrust angle type wear. So you don't see that as much anymore, because the sport bikes now, man, those things are, it's crazy. 200 plus horsepower, 214.
Yeah.
I never thought I would have seen a motorcycle that has as much horsepower as my 1986 Mustang GT had.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that.
Now, you didn't have a V8 on it, though.
Yeah, I didn't have a V8. And that thing had 200 horsepower, and my Ducati has more horsepower than my Mustang GT had.
Yeah.
So it's really important to make sure you do your homework, whether you're on a motorcycle, any type of motorcycle, car, pickup truck, to understand what you're getting involved in when you decide to purchase another tire. And you can't say, well, my buddy's got the same motorcycle. I've got a Hayabusa. He's got a Hayabusa. He got, on the rear, he got 2,200 miles and I only got 16. Just because you have the same motorcycle, if all things were even, you are not going to get the same type of tire wear, because he may be harder on the throttle, harder on the brakes. You may be a little bit smoother. So don't take
or lighter
you may not, don't take what your buddy's getting as the example of what you should get, because you're probably not going to have the same riding style. So it's really important to do your homework. Always do your homework, call the manufacturer, talk to them. Here's one thing that's really bad and disappointing about the technical experts at a lot of the motorcycle companies now. If you call a 1-800 number and try to speak with one of the technical people, a lot of them are not motorcycle people. They're car people, and they've got like a FAQ that they're looking at. And if you're knowledgeable like the three of you are, or me, there may not be able to answer a lot of the questions that you want. So a lot of times I use Facebook and go to some of the forums that are on there, and I don't look for what somebody says should happen as an expert. What I look for is, hey, what did you get on your bike? And then I do a consensus and try to figure out what product I should choose. And a lot of times you have a product like on my Ducati, Pirellis work better. They're designed for Pirelli. Pirelli's designed for them. On the BMW, Michelin's and things like that work better. So it depends. You also want to look at the type of vehicle you're driving. That goes for cars too. and to decide which product you want to get.
Down south, well, when I raced, we used tire warmers. And of course, it was a single compound tire, and you change the compounds varying on the track and the length, stuff like that. So you had a concern always on heat cycles, the number of heat cycles. But when you're talking about a motorcycle tire that you use on the street, I would be concerned about heat cycling in the South, like in Alabama, Louisiana, where even though you have a 2CT or a 3CT, what kind of an effect, and that is my last question, what effect those types of heat cycles,
Okay, let's talk about it on the street and the track, both.
Okay.
In the South, or even worse than that, in Florida, a southern pass south of Houston, where it's not only heat, but moisture. Two things.
Okay.
For a 3-compound, 2-compound, for the tires on anything other than a bike you're going to use for a track day, I would not recommend using tire warmers. I just wouldn't. And also any temperature under 40 degrees, period, no matter where you are, I would not recommend riding a motorcycle.
I didn't know that.
Yes, because tires, if you look at the passenger car market, or even the light truck, and like in the northern states, Northeast and New York and New Hampshire, they switch over to winter tires. Even in Canada, in Quebec, Canada, it's mandatory to go to winter tires. Tires are made of rubber so they conform to the road surface. And so take the tires on my Ferrari. If I try to drive that thing here in Nashville and it's 30 degrees out, all the little electronic helpers are going to be constantly on because that tire is not going to have any traction. It's gonna get too hard. So I guess there's winter tires made for Ferraris. I've never tried one, so I don't really ride that thing.
Which Ferrari you got there, TJ?
I got a 360 Modena F1 Spider.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know what that is, but it sounds fast.
It is, and it's really cool. It's just fun. I don't really drive it fast. My son likes to go downtown with the top down and act like a movie star. But
tell them to pay for it when something breaks. Okay.
Yeah. So they switched to winter tires. So most manufacturers do not, and I want you to understand this clearly, do not sell or ship motorcycle tires to Canada in the winter, because if you're just holding that in your hand, or even an ultra high performance automobile tire, you drop it, it will crack just like ice.
Ew, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So an all season tire works really efficiently between 40 and probably 80 or 90 degrees. And then an ultra high performance tire, like what's on my Ferrari, with a Y speed rating or bracketed Y speed rating, which means for speeds over 186 miles an hour, that tire works great in the summer. As it gets cold, you think something's wrong with the tires because the rubber doesn't conform to the road surface as well. So with motorcycles are basically ultra high performance tires with the compounds that they use compared to automotive street tires. So in 40 degrees or less, you're taking a serious chance on a motorcycle.
I've ridden my bike in at 25 degree weather.
You're scaring me, brother. You're scaring me.
You got to get the day going. Back then, you had to leave the last week of February. But a real concern is that Rick has been driving on those old Firestone tires that blew out and had tons of losses. Rick, you want to talk?
God. Wait a minute. Yeah, I remember getting those replaced on my old Explorer. They called me in and they kept calling me, get these Firestone tires in. I think they were what were they? The Wilderness back?
Wilderness ATXs on those.
Oh my God!
It was the
they wanted rid of those
500s, and they had a few.
Yeah.
Hey, I just got some Goodyear comfort tires on mine. Yes, comfort drive tires, all 4. I don't know how good those are, but they recommended them.
All the tire manufacturers today do a really, really good job. Everybody learned a lot from the Ford, the Ford Firestone fiasco back in the early 80s, late 90s. And that was kind of a test tube for all tire manufacturers to understand what you could and couldn't do. With Ford saying, the soccer moms in the era of the soccer moms saying, hey, this thing rides like a truck. well, maybe because it's on a truck chassis.
It is a
Well,
truck.
you can lower the tire pressure about 20% and it'll be fine. Yeah, it'll be fine, but the tires are going to blow out. And then Firestone learning a lot about having tires that would last, due to compounding, 80, 90,000 miles, but the casing of the tire wouldn't hold up as well. So there's always some trade-off there.
When you're talking tire mileage up to like 70, 80,000 miles, are you losing anything? You losing any comfort with that?
You're not going to lose comfort, but you're going to suffer big time on wet traction and handling. Big, stupid, crazy loss on wet traction. Because that technology doesn't exist today. Of course, there's a lot of new technologies, like Michelin's got the Twill, which is the airless tire. Goodyear has theirs, Bridgestone has theirs. But the problem with that tire, because there's no air in it, you can't adjust it to the load that you're carrying. So Polaris is using those airless tires on a lot of their ATVs and SUVs and stuff.
What are they putting in them? What are they putting in them besides air?
There's no
gas.
air in them. There's like a waffle type plastic or rubber that's in between.
I was going to ask you about those tires. Is that the tire of the future? I see like those big earth movers have them, and I've seen Mercedes had them on a few of their cars.
They did, but they're still working on that technology so that you notice they'll never probably be in like a pickup truck, because a pickup truck is a pickup truck. They're going to assume somebody's going to haul a load or tow a trailer or something like that, and you can't adjust that tire to that significantly different load that would be applied to it if you put something in the bed or towed a trailer or a fifth wheel or something like that. They're still developing that technology. I'm not there yet as far as, I mean, if it's on an ATV or something like that, off-road, and also you got to take speed in consideration, because that adds a lot of friction and heat to that tire too. Then you can't adjust for higher speeds. So the technology is still developing. I'm always excited to see new tire technology or vehicle technology. As a matter of fact, we're going to be doing some training for some technicians who work on fire apparatus, and there's several, believe it or not, hybrid fire trucks, ladder trucks, and things out there. And with an electric vehicle, you need to think about some of the technology in that, because these things have instant torque.
Sure they do.
And so the tire manufacturers have to design a tire that can withstand that torque and still hold up efficiently, because you got all this torque, which could result in lug-based tearing and stuff like that. So they've got to design the tire differently from a fully electric vehicle versus a hybrid vehicle versus a gasoline engine versus a diesel engine, because all of them have a different band on that torque and that horsepower curve on those vehicles, and they've got to design a tire based on the torque and horsepower curves.
Are you a consultant at all? Do you go like to truck companies and consult them on stuff, and they hire you?
Yes, we always get calls from big fleets, and most of the time they just want to be educated. And we spend a couple of days there looking at their fleets, and some of them, some of the things that we've been getting asked about now is they've got size proliferation in their fleet, meaning they got all these different sizes and they don't have enough warehouse space to keep all these different sizes and types of vehicles, of tires. So what can we do? And then we consult them on types of vehicles to purchase on future and vehicle life cycles and things like that, especially in government fleets, because they don't have a lot of money. And some of them think the longer you keep the vehicle, the more value, the more money you save. And that doesn't always work that way. So we recently worked with a big government fleet on the West Coast, and they had ambulances that they had just ordered, and they didn't have enough load carrying capacity on the ambulance. So wheels were breaking off. And they called
an ambulance of all things.
Wow. Yeah. And they called us and said, hey, man, can you help us? And I said, oh, what's going on? First thing I'm going to ask for is what tires you have on there. I need pictures, lots of them. And I need door placard information so I can see what load. And basically they ordered the right configuration for maybe 5 or 10 years ago, but with all the electronics and equipment that ambulances carry now, they didn't have enough comfort zone or cushion there for load carrying capacity, and the wheels were breaking. And that's really interesting, because if you try to put light truck tires on your truck, like I was saying they do in my home state of Louisiana, and it came with P-metric tires, guess what? Those wheels are P-metric wheels. So a light truck tire in an E-load range can have upwards of 80 PSI in it. Then if you try to put that on a P-metric wheel, which is designed for a maximum of maybe up to 51 PSI, you can actually blow the wheel out and have a tire fail.
Wow.
Right. Wow. Hey, TJ, is there anywhere you can go to study tire technology and what you know? Like, is there any college courses on that or something?
We offer a course with my group, and that's the only course and at Tire, when I say we teach tire forensics, we teach everything that a reconstructionist or an officer or anybody for that matter wants to know about tires, what to look for, how much pressure, where to find that information. We teach a course like that. But I'm not aware of anyone else. Most of all the courses that we've seen that say they're tire related courses are basically sales courses. They're taught by salespeople and they're trying to sell you a tire. We don't really sell anything. Our goal is to educate the law enforcement people, the reconstructionists, the technicians, or the fleets about tires and how to reduce liability. If someone wants to know about our courses or something, they can actually email me direct at the Tyre Guy. How you spell tire? Tire with a Y.
Tyre Guy
at yahoo.com. And I will send, if they want to come to one of the courses, I can send them information. Or a lot of fleets say we want a course designed, customized for our specific fleet. We do that as well. We go in and look at their fleet, what vehicles they have, what kind of mileages they're getting. And if you own a fleet and you want to understand what's going on with your tires, the biggest and best way to do that, and you would think this would be common sense, it's not, but the best way to understand your fleet is to keep all the tires that you took off, all your vehicles for 3 months. And then you go in and do a fleet survey to determine why those tires came out of service. And 100% of the time, it's so crazy because they think, oh, we're just wearing them out. And then when we show them how to look at the tires and become tire whisperers and understand the language that the tires are teaching, they're like, oh, we had no idea that's why they were.
They're really interesting. And I never knew there was so much technology to all this stuff. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah.
I live, sleep, eat, and think tires 24 hours a day.
You eat tires. I mean,
they taste like chicken. I tried to tell you. Sometimes they taste like possum, but possum is a little more greasy than chicken.
Well,
TJ, how'd you get into this?
You know, when Bridgestone hired me, I basically needed a job. And I didn't know what I was getting, and I got into it, and I loved it. And, you know, tires and what we do at Tennant Associates isn't a job for me and the people that I work with. It defines who I am, TJ Tennant, as a person. You know, I've had people at some of our seminars and training sessions, they see me giggling, I'm running around, I'm having fun. And they're thinking, I've never seen somebody so passionate about.
Yeah, I tell you, you are.
I don't know if it's passion. I just think I was born and bred to do what I do, whether I'm in the courtroom, whether I'm training, whether I'm doing a keynote, it doesn't matter. I relate everything to who TJ Tennant is. And actually, my trademark, the Tyre Guy, this is Ron Flatt, RONNFLATT. So people would see me in the airport and they say, oh, okay, that's the Tyre Guy. Sometimes they wouldn't name my name. They'd say, oh, you're the Tyre Guy. And that's how I came up with the name, the Tyre Guy, but tire spelled with a Y, because we do quite a bit of business overseas. We even do online training.
And they spell it.
COVID. Yeah, they spell it with a Y over there.
With the English, yeah.
Yeah, but anytime you have someone who professes to be an expert or something like that, even when we do our presentations, they're not our presentations. The presentations belong to whoever we are designing them for. And every presentation we do is different because they're all customized. So when we do a presentation, if someone asks a question and it's in the back of the presentation, most presenters will say, oh, just hold on to that thought. Well, no, we go there. We go there right then because it's for you. It's designed for you. And if I'm not doing something like that and giving you what you need, I'm not doing my job. And if I'm not passionate and having fun talking about tires, why should you be interested?
Well, you know what? I'm going to have to, we've got 1 minute left, and I'd like to thank Rick and Larry for screwing me. And I got one question in the whole time, and I had this list.
He's so interesting. I know.
I'm blown away. And if if you have a fleet, if you have any questions at all that TJ can answer for you, the Tyre Guy, the Tyre with the TYRE guy at yahoo.com. And he is the guy to ask. He is the knowledge guy to ask about tires.
Yeah, that he is.
I'm blown away. I can't,
Yeah,
my
I
head's
am
like
good.
this. I can't.
We could talk, TJ. We could talk to you for a couple more hours. It's just
Yeah,
so darn
yeah,
interesting. I tell you.
We do a 3-day class and it's always not enough time.
I can imagine 1 hour here was I learned so much I can't believe. And if you think of tire forensics, if you're going out and buying a tire, you think it's just a tire, you need to talk to TJ Tennant, and he will say it's not just a tire, it is the tire, and this is why. So, but I'd like to, TJ, it's been an honor having you. We'd love to have you.
Yes,
back.
it has. Yes,
Love
it
to have you back and start. Maybe I'll make up some questions, and I won't invite these two guys to join me because all they took up the whole time.
I'm
So
sorry.
I'm going to keep my questions for you. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Larry Ward, Rick Guerrera, and I'm Greg Roden, and we will
See you down the road.
down the road.